we are very fortunate to have one of our own here. Wayne Coates has been our sheriff for how long, Wayne?
Since 2016.
2016, and he's brought Major Aaron Meredith with him for support. And I'm going to shut up and let Wayne Coates take over. Let's stand up and give Wayne a welcome.
Thank y'all so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. Did everybody get a copy of this? If not, Major Meredith, if you'll raise your hand, I can get one to you. You know, not many things, there are a few things that intimidate me in life. Right here is one of them. And the reason why, John told me, he said, you got about 15 minutes to talk. Well, not many politicians can speak for just 15 minutes. But what I first looked around was see how many had golf shoes on. Because that's a sign that they're ready to go play golf and they want me to hurry up and get gone. So anyway, this is a good meeting place when you got to speak, when you want them to cut it short. Because one thing I look at, or sometimes my wife goes with me, if I get long-winded, she sits back there in the back. So she's watching people's feet and all that. But anyway,
I can do that too.
What I've got here today, there's a lot of figures, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on with them unless when I finish you got some questions. So I got this for you to take home and look at it, because it is alarming. It's not just here in Harnett County, it's across the state. And one of the things that you know, COVID over the last 2 years has just overshadowed everything. I mean, everything was about COVID. Well, the biggest thing that it has overshadowed, which is very dear to not just me, but the whole sheriff's office, is the opioid epidemic. That didn't go away because of COVID. We're losing young kids, older kids on a daily basis. It's alarming. But again, I speak with all the sheriffs around that join our county. We try to work together. But just one of the things, last year alone, we answered as the sheriff's office. Telephone calls that came into the sheriff's office was 35,000 telephone calls. Now that's just what service calls were that we sent a deputy to. We drove over 2.5 million miles last year. So you can imagine now driving that many miles with gas like it is, we got a lot we got to deal with this upcoming budget. And we served over 6,500 papers. So the deputies, they've been busy. But getting back to what I wanted to share here with you, this map on the bottom is Harnett County. And we have our county divided into 8 zones because we have deputies that are assigned that zone. So when you look at the percentage of calls, and you can read the charts there, for each zone, the area you may live, you can see what the percentage of those calls, those 35,000 calls were broken down and where we went. Now, the most serious thing when you look at this now is if you flip over on the backside, we keep these statistics daily, quarterly, everything. This is what we look at. Was in 2016, if you see the blue line, the overdoses. Now, these are just ones that are reported and that we get called to. There's no telling how many that, is anybody here that is not familiar with Narcan? Okay, Narcan if somebody overdoses, rescue squads, even the drugstores now are passing them out, giving them away. You can administer the Narcan if it's an overdose, and it'll bring them, most of the time it'll bring them back around. So now, these drug dealers or drug users, they just take that with them, got a friend with them, and if they overdose, you just shoot them with it, and it brings them back. Now, I have met some, let's see how I want to say this, some people that weren't quite so bright. They done their overdose, did their drugs, but didn't have somebody with them. But when we look at the videos, they got the Narcan sitting beside them. We're not smart enough to realize somebody's got to administer it to you. So that's a little bit about the Narcan. But these are the cases that in 2016 we had 25. You go to 2017, it went up to 54. And then 2018, you see the chart, it keeps rising and rising. And then underneath it, the orange line in the graph is the overdose deaths. Now, I'm proud to say we have charged more people in Harnett County than anybody in the state of North Carolina. We've charged more people by death by distribution. 12. And we just sent the first one off. He pled guilty, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. Now, this don't sound like a lot, but he got 12 years for taking a life. And it is not a lot of time. He should have been gone for life as far as I'm concerned. And there's a lawyer in here, he may not agree with me. But when you take somebody's life like that, 12 years is not long enough. The good thing is he's off the street and he's not giving it to somebody else for 12 years. But if you look at all the charts, we have it broken down, and it's very, it's amazing to look at right under the graph, percent of overdoses by race. You look at only 11% for the African American, then 89% of whites have overdosed. If you go down underneath that, you look at the chart, percentage of overdoses, we got it broken down by race and gender. There again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because you can take it home and look at it, but it is alarming numbers, but you can see the work that we put in trying to figure out how to stop this. Well, you're not going to stop it. It's coming. All we can do is keep working at it. I have 6 narcotic agents to cover 650 square miles. That's not enough. We need a lot more, but those 6 have done a great job. These drugs are coming in across the border, coming up out of, a few years ago, it was coming up out of Mexico into Texas. Texas distributed it to Atlanta. Atlanta was the hub for the East Coast. And from Atlanta, it would go up and down the East Coast. Now, when it comes up out of Atlanta, it goes in, I think it's up into Iowa now, or not Iowa, but Michigan. And it's just distributed. It's coming in from everywhere. A few years ago, we did a bust. It was sort of big. It was $89.4 million worth of crystal liquid meth. Got it in the tractor trailer, and they brought it in on the fuel tanks. I had folks calling me from Florida when this come out, wanting me to go down. They'd pay all my expenses to fly down to Florida, tell them how we done this. It wasn't what Wayne Coast did, it's what these narcotic agents did. The leg work, and we're able to get it. What scares me is for that much to get that we called us, how much are we not getting? And I gotta tell you, it's disheartening. I see the pain in these parents' eyes after an overdose. Of course, I met most of them. And I try to meet with the families afterwards, not right afterwards, but go and talk to them, explain to them what we're doing, everything we can. If there's a good chance, we're gonna find out who it was. But I'm up front with them also and say, look, we don't have a clue right now. But I see the pain in their eyes. This one father that Major Meredith and I went and speak to about a year ago, big man, and he'd lost his daughter to the overdose. And he told me, he said, Sheriff, he said, if I could have got my hands on this man, all you had to do was call the morgue. He said, because I'd killed him. And I told him, I said, well, and he was one of them that we were able to charge for the overdose death. But he looked at me and Major Meredith and he said, I have forgiven that man. He said, I pray for him every day. And then we found out he had lost another daughter a few years prior to that to an overdose death. And so when we started to leave there, he asked me, he said, Sheriff, can I pray over you and Major Meredith? I said, sure. But those are the things that I see when I go to these overdoses. I see the pain and I want to put these people in prison. And it's a hard case to prove. But like I said, we've charged 12 in Harnett County. And again, we just sent one of them off, but it's the hard work those men and women that dug down deep, went the extra mile to find it. We lost 4 or 5 last week to overdose death. These kids, and not just kids, if you look at this one chart, most of them are 50 years and older that have, let's see, where's that chart Yes, 60%. I don't see it right now, but I've got it broken down on here. And, oh, there it is. It's by the age bracket. It's on the second page on the right-hand column. Yeah, it's over 50%, or over age 50 is the biggest majority of them. And folks, we need your help. We can't just do this on our own. If you see something suspicious, that's what you pay us to do. We want to come out there. We want to do something. We want to put these people in prison. I started a program 2 years ago in the school. Lieutenant Christians, who over the narcotics unit, most of you may know that had kids, we had to get you to sign saying it was okay for us to go into school. But we looked at how many kids we were losing to overdose deaths and overdose cases. So I said, Josh, we got to find a way to reach out to all these kids as quickly as we can. And so we put a plan together where we went to the school superintendent, Dr. Fleming, and assistant Dr. Brooks Matthews, told them what we wanted to do. And they were all on board. They made the logistics happen. We put together a team. We had a pharmacist. Well, let me back up. We did the 9th and 10th graders at 9 o'clock in the morning and did 11th, 12th graders at 10 o'clock. And that panel we had was a pharmacist that told the students how it affected their brain when they took the drugs. The second person we had was a mother that had a child that was addicted to drugs and what her and her family were going through, the things he was doing to them, trying to burn the house down, stealing all their stuff, selling it to get more drugs. Then we had Sand Hills Mental Health and Rehab that also talked about their treatment for it. And then we had a mother that had actually lost a child to overdose. And then we had, what was the other one? We had the addict that was actually a recovering addict, had been clean for a year, that was dealing with it or had dealt with it. Well, it did exactly what we wanted it to do. But when the mother that talked about losing her child, she had the students crying, she had the principal crying, the teacher crying, I was crying. When you listen to her story, she was a personal friend of ours. And we reached out every kid in all the school system. So what I wanted to do just before COVID hit, because I kept hearing the parents say, well, I didn't see this, because we would ask them about different things we found in the room. And they'd say, well, I didn't think to look for this, or we didn't go into rooms. And the first thing I always tell them is, that's your house. When your kids go off to school, go look around in their room. Look and see what's going on. And I had some parents say, well, that's their privacy. No, it's not. That's your kids, and that's your house. And that's the only way you're going to know what's going on. And so I told Josh, just before COVID hit 2 years ago, I said, Josh, we did good with the schools. I said, what we need to do now is set up 5 different areas across the county. This is what I want to do. And whether it would have been at the high schools or 5 different places, and title it, What Am I Missing? This was going to be for the parents, the grandparents, or anybody that wanted to come, because these parents were missing the signs. And they did not see the signs until we pointed it out to them in what we found in their rooms. You know, a broken ink pen, the Q-tips, dollar bills rolled up, and things like that the mothers had no clue what was going on. And it's just, you know, lack of education. So that's what our plan is now that COVID is starting to clear up, thank goodness. That's my plan for the next few years or the next few months, is to get out, advertise it, on our social media, in the newspaper, different locations we're going to be at, and try to educate as many of the families as we can on what to be looking for, so we don't lose anybody else. You know, the kids, I keep saying kids, young adults, but when you look at the chart, we need to be educating the older folks. They're the ones 50 and over that are most of them that are dying now and using it. Go ahead, Steve.
How much, maybe I'm just stupid, but where did they get
I know, is the breaking and entering and the larceny, those statistics reflect the same, are they as, what am I trying to say, as the?
Contributing factor.
Yes.
It is, and what you see is the kids will start stealing from their parents first. Parents will call and say, this is missing, well, there's no physical sign of break-ins. Then when they get where they can't steal anything else from their parents, then they start stealing from their friends. Or when they can't steal anything else from their friends, then they go break in houses. That'll be a self-correcting problem if they break in the wrong house.
Here in this area, yeah.
Yeah. But it's all, then they take, and that's what they do, they go buy their drugs. Most of it today is gang related. I mean, our drive-by shootings is just out of this world. It's gang related or drug related, and it's retaliation. We've caught all these on video door cams and watch it. I went to my commissioners about 2 years ago asking for gang officers. I needed 4 gang officers. And of course I didn't get them. And I showed them the video in closed session. And I can talk about closed session because I'm not bound by it. But I showed it to them in closed session, and they were amazed. Said, this is happening here? I said, yes. I told them, I said, this is what you see in LA, Dallas, Oregon, Minnesota. I said, it's happening right here. This is why I need the gang officers. And so they said, put it in your budget. Well, I put it in my budget. Lo and behold, it didn't ever get passed. But what I found out later on, one of my commissioners, I said, let me ask you something. I said, I put in for gang officers and I didn't get it. They said, well, it didn't show up in your budget. We thought you changed your mind. I said, no. So what did I do to fix that? I fixed up my budget for my county manager, but I also fixed up one for each commissioner. I said, now when it goes in front of the commissioners for the vote, if it don't show up and you've got mine, ask, of course we got a new county manager now, ask them, say, didn't the sheriff put in for this? Because it never got presented to them. But I need gang officers because there's 28 different gangs operating in Harnett County.
Gosh.
That's just in Harnett County. Every county has them. I can't imagine what Cumberland County is. But we are, in today's atmosphere, there's a shortage of law enforcement across this country. Everybody's getting out of it. One, they're afraid they're going to be sued. If you do your job the way you were trained and you follow your SOP manual front to back, you may not get indicted, but I can promise you, you're going to get sued because insurance companies will settle because they don't want to go to trial, and then it makes you look like you're guilty. But the other is the money. I just got the men and women a raise last year because I was losing so many to different agencies. We were only making $36,000. I got it raised to $41,000. That was great. Guess what happened a month later? Fuquay jumps up to $50,000. Holly Springs jumped up to $52,000. So these deputies and police officers are chasing the money. So it's just so bad out there being short of officers, and this country is really everywhere. Raleigh PD, if you saw the paper a couple of weeks ago, 160 officers short. I'm 14 short. Sheriff Wright in Cumberland County is 39 short. Sheriff Baker in Wake County is 90 short. He went from 25 men on a squad to 9, and that's dangerous for you folks. So we got to get these salaries up if we're going to continue to battle this and everything else, the crime that's out here in Harnett County. But it's not a good time for law enforcement today. I will say our commissioners have assured me they would never defund us, and I think you've seen across the country now, people that were wanting and demanding defunding the police, they saw what it'd be like without them. Now we got to find a way to control the lawsuits because that's why we're losing a lot of good men in law enforcement. Don't know how to battle that because as long, and I don't know how many insurance people are in here, but they just find it's easier to settle or cheaper than going to court. So that's a little bit about, I wanted to talk, I could talk all day to you about the sheriff's office and what's going on in this county, but it's not just Harnett County, it's every county. But if any of you got any questions, I'd be glad to stick around. If you got any now, I would be glad to answer any questions you have. But this, if you'll take home tonight where you can spend some time looking at it, it's alarming, and it should be.
Sheriff, talk a little bit about the incidents of violence in schools in Harnett County, not even necessarily students at the school, but outsiders coming onto campuses and whatnot. I know, for instance, the western part of the county has had a number of incidents this year where there have been big call-outs of deputies to come to the campus for
Bomb threats.
Threats of armed intruders.
We've not had as many coming in as far as intruders. Now, we've had some kids that come to school. Gosh knows, when I was younger, we used to go duck hunting in the morning at 6:30, 7 o'clock, hang your gun in the back and go in there. No longer can do that. But some kids will still bring guns to school. But the bomb threats, that has gotten to be a big issue because somebody wants to have a free day of school, so they'll call a bomb threat in. Sometimes we can track them down. Most of them we have been able to, but there's no real accountability there because it's juveniles. Well, juvenile justice and what Wayne Coates thinks juvenile justice, should be is a little bit different. The commissioners, as well as the Board of Education, one time wanted me to do a feasibility study, what it costed each time we used all these resources at a bomb threat. And it was about a little over $7,000 each time because we had to call officers from Cumberland County, Wake County, Chatham County. They all come down here because we want to get the kids back in school, but we want to make sure it's safe. So one dog would have to do the parking lot, one dog would have to do school buses, 2 or 3 would do the inside of the school so we could make sure it was safe and get them back in, or you would have been gone all day long. With those resources, it costed money for the cars, mileage, the dog, hourly wages, and they were going to try to get an ordinance passed, and the parents would be held accountable for it. And I really don't know where it got stopped. I got my ideas, but that would be one way. I know if my dad would have got the call that I had made the bomb threat, that would have been a self-correcting problem. If he had to pay that money, because he was a deputy here, he didn't make $619 a month. If he'd had to pay $6,500, it wouldn't have been pretty at the Coates house. But we do have those things, and we've got the deputies. Some of the schools we've got 2 at, and we've been fortunate. We've not had a shooting at our schools. Very fortunate. And you've only got one school resource officer. Yes, ma'am.
With these gangs, are they school-age kids, and is the activity and the crime inter-gang, or are they targeting civilians?
A little bit of both. Their territory, you got the Bloods, the Crips, they've always been at each other. And that's a problem in my jail. When you get them off the street and they got 650 square miles out here to deal with each other, now I've got them in close quarters. And you're talking about one detention officer in a pod with 50 inmates. You're talking about dangerous? To me, that's the most dangerous position in the sheriff's office, is that detention officer, because you got the gangs in there. And, but they, it's just amazing what these gangs, if you could just come and spend some time at the sheriff's office and talk with. I have a detective that he does the gang part-time because he has to do his detective job, but sit there and listen to his stories. And then when we watch the videos, the door cams, it's 16 years old. The one you just saw a couple of weeks ago where they did the drive-by shooting on 27, one of them shooting in the car was shooting through the window and hit his brother in the head and killed him. And they were juveniles. We've got them in juvenile justice down in Cumberland County. To show you why I'm not a real big fan of juvenile justice, we needed to get a DNA swab and to to link them to this case, go down there with a search warrant, and juvenile justice would not let us go in there and swab this guy. So what we had to do, we had to get him, bring him back up to Harnett County and get juvenile justice here to let us do the DNA swab. So there's so many firewalls, or not firewalls, so many walls and steps you have to jump through. But you would have thought juvenile justice down there would have wanted us to help work with us, but they didn't. It's just a never-ending battle. And these men and women, they do a great job. And it's not a thing Wayne Coates has ever done. These men and women are the ones that do the job that make me look good. When I do look good, they're the ones that are doing it. It's not me. But
Sure, guys.
yes,
I
ma'am.
do want to say this. I don't remember which year it was. It might have been 17, I believe 2017. And you did the large drug forum in the Commons area.
Mhm.
And Josh led that, I believe.
That was for the churches in the shootings.
Right,
Mhm.
but that made such an impression on me as to understanding what was going on. And you had a huge crowd there that day. Anytime that there are resources and you can hold forums like that, I'm all for it. And just what you're talking about today, now we've got gangs, now we've got this. So much has changed since 2016 and 17. There's a whole new set of issues, but I just think the more that you can get out in the public and inform the public about what's going on and where your needs are, that made a big impression on me.
Well, we try to do, just like CP&L does, when they have power out. I got a supervisor who lives in my neighborhood, and I complained. I said, why we don't have our lights on already? He said, we always go where we get the most lights turned on at one time. And that's the way we did this, and what Cindy was talking about, and this is just short, John. When they started having the church shootings, I thought, God, all the churches in Harnett County, how am I gonna get out here what we can do to help? So we got on the telephone and started making phone calls to all the churches, and we had a meeting set up with the Commons area. I knew it was gonna be too big for the sheriff's office, but we did an overflow at the sheriff's office as well. And we had 360 ministers to show up in the Commons area, and then another 60 at the sheriff's office. And we talked about what they can do, not do, or we would go to your church and evaluate what your security's like. And even afterwards, we started getting phone calls, people that missed it, and we'd go out, Josh would go out with a team and go over safety and things that they could point out that they could help in the church. So Cindy was right, we had that big turnout, and we got the word out there real quick. Same thing I want to do about the drug overdoses now, getting parents educated and the grandparents
And see,
educated.
I had no idea we have gangs in Harnett County. I mean, I really did.
Anytime any of you would like to come up to the sheriff's office, I'll break that video out for you to see it. It's alarming. And it was to the commissioners.
Well, you're welcome back April 5th, because we're gonna have the county manager here as the program.
Well, if you've not met this new county manager, I'm impressed with him. The first day or two, he called me and said, I want to sit down and talk with you. When he came in, the first thing he said, well, first 2 minutes, he said, Sheriff, I know you're facing a big problem. This county is growing. You're gonna have to have more men. Because right now I'm one deputy per 55 square miles, or one deputy per 10,000 people. And I said, you're right. I said, but I got to have the money to keep them here. I said, so you can't have one without the other. So he sees what we need. Our budget makes up 28% of the county budget. Emergency management makes up the other 28%. And then the rest of it are smaller departments. But you gotta have law enforcement. And I'm proud of the men and women we got up there. When you don't have, I got 146 sworn positions, and you got 650 square miles. I listened to the lady that night on this, what's that group called, Aaron United Harnett, or Ladies of Harnett? And I heard them interviewing the commissioner, and they said, well, you're on the hot seat. And I'm thinking, she's gonna call me next, and I'm gonna just tell her, if you want to see a hot seat, come up here and sit in this one. It's Monday through Friday, 24/7. And lady, this is the hottest seat in this county. Cause it's busy, but I love what I do. I have a passion for this county. I have a passion for the people in this county. So.
We appreciate what you do for us. There's a little something for the Kiwanis
Thank
to
you.
remember us by. And Major, I've got a little something for you too. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Anything else for the good of Kiwanis? Remember, and your Kiwanis Club tickets right up here.